for stopping by this morning. Welcome to this channel, which is the channel where I share with you the crafty and creative side of my life. Thank you for stopping by. If you are a returning viewer, then thank you so much for deciding to once again join me during the next half hour or so. If you are a new viewer, then I want to thank you for pressing that watch button and deciding to hang around here for a while and join this great community of crafters where, although I am your host and I do decide the content that is presented here week after week, well, that content is chosen based on our interaction here. So feel free to leave your comments below during this episode or after it's finished to comment on what you've seen, what you've liked, what you would like to see more of, what have you been up to, and how can I help you with what you have been up to. So yes, our interaction is what makes this such a great community. So don't forget. And I just wanted to tell you that I have not forgotten that I have a promised giveaway for all of my subscribers. We already reached and surpassed the 300 subscribers, which was my mark. And so I want to carry out that giveaway that I promised. In that giveaway, you are receiving, I'll show you once again to kind of get you motivated and enthusiastic about the idea. I am going to share with a lucky winner this Cath Kidston small notions bag or notions pouch or makeup bag or whatever you want it to be that I brought back from my last trip to London. Cath Kidston is a famous designer of all these types of objects, home decor, and even clothing, and all these types of storage items like suitcases and project bags and backpacks. And so if you don't know her, well, you can look her up on the internet and see that she's got a long line of very nice items. And I'm not paid to say that. It's just that every time we go to London, we always find something charming that we can bring back with us. And I am including also this patch. It's a fad these days to have pins to put on your project bag or patches to sew on your bags or your clothing. And this one is a favorite one of mine. I'm working on my PhD, which are my projects half done. I am also going to include a pin that was gifted to me by CrochetLuna so that I would share with one lucky winner from this podcast, one lucky viewer. Crochet friends are the best of friends. And in the little package she sent, it also has some tea, coconut mango oolong tea. So that's for a lucky winner. I'm going to share I think it's a super mini, but it was included in a project bag that I purchased a while ago from Inner Pickle Knitting. So I'm going to share that with one of you because it goes with the colors that are on the bag. And I am also going to share this piece of felted art that I prepared from a kit. If you are a returning viewer, you know that I finished this a while back once I got back from Edinburgh, which is where I purchased the kit. And so I am going to share it with one lucky viewer, and you decide what you would like to do with this. It is an original in the sense that although you purchase the felt with the stamp, the bird stamp on it, well, I guess every single one of these is going to turn out to be an original, right? Because no two of us would felt this in the same way. So that gift, along with a pattern that was gifted to us by Hannah of the Cozy Cottage. She gifted us the latest pattern that she wrote up, and she is going to allow me to share that pattern with one of my viewers. And so I decided to put all of that together into one gift package, and I will be giving it to one of my viewers during my next podcast. So what you need to do to participate is simply comment on this video below. If you're interested in optioning for winning this prize, please comment below and just tell me about what is your favorite whip at the moment. Okay, so we'll keep it simple. Just comment below, and your comment has to include, it can say other things, but it has to include a comment on your favorite WIP at the moment. And since YouTube no longer allows direct messaging to the viewers of these podcasts, I would need some form of contact information. So if you want to put an email address there, or if you want to include your Ravelry name, or if you want to include your Instagram name, whichever of those three that you feel safer and more sure in sharing, well then please share it below. And if you are chosen, I will notify you on the next podcast. Or maybe I won't even have to wait that long. If I have your information there, I can just notify you straightforward, right? As soon as I pick out the winner. So don't miss out on that. It is our 300 subscriber giveaway. It's a small package, but with lots of love to all of you, to thank you for joining me week after week. So let's get on with the crafty business. The crafty business includes, first of all, what I am wearing. So this week, I, at some point, wanted to have a quick make. Most of the WIPs that I am working on currently are long-term projects. There's no way that I could finish them in a couple of hours. And I wanted that instant gratification, that instant satisfaction of starting something and finishing it in a short while. So if you have been a long-term viewer of this podcast and the podcast that I shared with my daughter, Crochet Cakes, previously, you know that I am a fan of collars. And I wanted to create, and I wanted to for some time, to create a collar that was like a shirt collar, pointed. But I couldn't find a pattern on Ravelry nor on Pinterest where you can find the pictures but not the pattern. So I sat down for a little while and wrote it up myself. This is a shirt collar, and it is crocheted up in a very simple manner. It only uses half double crochets and single crochets, a little bit of increasing row after row until I get these points established. And basically that is it. It is a project that should very easily take you a couple of hours, maybe not even that, depending on how fast you crochet. Well, maybe that if you decide to add on the pearls that I've added on here that are optional. And will be another gift to all of you, because it is a pattern that I am going to write up and I am going to place on my blog so that you can have access to it if you would like to try it out. And if you would like to improve it, you get back to me and you write me a comment telling me how I can improve it. I will modify the original pattern and give you credit for that modification. And we continue to grow the skills that we share here in our community. So I'll remind you that there is a blog set up for this podcast. The blog is called Mind and Muse. It is on Weebly, so it's mindandmuse.weebly.com, and I'll write this up at the bottom so that you don't forget. And you can go to that blog. It has been active. It has been quite active this summer because I've had some time to sit down and to write up some posts about the different makes that I have been creating. And so if you have a chance, go by, stop by the blog and read some of those posts and leave me some comments there if you feel. But there will be instructions on a new post that will tell you how and where you can find the pattern for this pointed collar if you so would like to make it. And so on the blog, it will be something that I can share with everybody in our community, not only the ones that watch my podcast, but in general, the community of makers that are out there on the internet looking for people to chat to and looking for patterns to practice and just looking for ways, patterns and designs that will add a little bit of happiness to their lives. So go check that out. Let's go on to my second group of makes then. The makes that I created for the Summer of Romance Cal 2018, sponsored by Clarisabeth of the Crochet Cakes podcast and Claudia of the CrochetLuna podcast. So, for the Summer of Romance Cal, I chose Sherlock Holmes as my bad boy. I also chose the Treasure Island pattern by Hannah of the Cozy Cottage Crochet as the pattern, the base pattern for my design. And I presented it in, I believe, in pretty much detail on my birthday episode, so I'm not going to go into all the detail now. I'm just going to show you the finished product. It is a shawl, obviously, because I'm using that shawl pattern, but what I mean by it is that it is not a garment meant for Sherlock. It is a garment meant to represent Sherlock for Mrs. Hudson. And so the idea of using the Fibonacci stripes was to get into the shawl design a mathematical sequence that related to Sherlock's use of logic to consistently solve all of his cases. And then the 3 colors of yarn, the brown one is 22221B Baker Street. The orange one is an eco-dyed, so getting some nature and some chemistry into the design, as is the camel color stripe, which is also a natural dyed yarn using onion skins and rambutan pits, as I have said before. So I was getting Sherlock into the design with the mathematics and with the colors and the dyes used to create 2 of my yarns and the name of the 3rd one. And so the last time I showed you this shawl, I was at this point where I had finished half of the shawl, and then I had to begin repeating my stripes, but in the exact opposite order to create the final version. Now, I will tell you that the original version has 1 more of these camel colored pattern stitch that interrupts the other stitch used in the pattern, and I have eliminated 1 on each side, so it would have 1 in the middle and 2 on each side. But I have eliminated 1 because of the fact that I wanted, before I met each of these changes in color here, I wanted to complete the stripe sequence in my 2 colors. And if I did that 3 times on one side instead of 2 like I did, the shawl would have been way too long in comparison to the width, and for example, and because of its crescent shape, I didn't think it was going to look right, and so I eliminated that. I altered the pattern, adjusted the rows so that I could have only 2 of the repeats of those camel colored pattern stitch row that is different from all of the rest. Words have escaped me today. So I had wanted to use as much yarn as possible, but I didn't want to make the shawl too long, and I ended up still having enough yarn left over. I haven't weighed it, but this is the piece of the eco printed that's left over, and this is the camel. Obviously I didn't use that much of it, and this is still the 221B, where I'm thinking that I can still get a pair of maybe mitts that I've been wanting to make for a long time, the fingerless mitts, but we'll see on that one. So continuing on the idea of the Summer Romance Cal, we'll show you my 2nd entry, which isn't finished yet, and I'm really not sure if it will be finished, but I'll share it anyway. Actually, probably would be my 2nd entry is finished. My 3rd one, because of the fact that they allowed sewing also, I created this bag to carry my projects. Very few of the cals in which I've actually created a bag that goes along with the theme. I have done it before, but this one was created using some tartan wool fabric that I received as a gift from Allison of the KCACY podcast. And I simply paired it with some cotton fabric that I had, dark blue. And on the inside, once again, I've got, I don't know how well that is going to show up here. It's like blue and black at the top. I've got this very sheer, maybe a rayon fabric. And so it all pulls together to create my Sherlock Holmes drawstring bag. And in the drawstring bag is living my project for my second project, well, or my third project if we count the project bag as a project. But the first project was crocheted, but this other project, as you know because you've seen before, is knitted. And so here's a notions pouch that Clarissa also made for me to go with this, my theme for this cowl. And I believe that I only just begun. Maybe I had one pattern complete on this scarf, which I told you is Sherlock's scarf pattern, which is a pattern that is free on Ravelry. I know the name ends with newbie. I'll write it up on the screen because I can't remember it right now. And I hate when that happens, but it just does. Especially when you have not brought your show notes with you. Okay, so I had done, I think, about this much the last time we were together, because it had like the 40 rows of moss or seed stitch and then the 20 rows of garter stitch. And that sequence of rows, moss or seed stitch in knit, if you don't know, is simply, what is it? A knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl on one side. And then when you go to the other side, it's a purl, knit, in such a way that your knit stitches and your purl stitches don't line up. Because if they line up, you create a rib. If they don't line up, you create this seed stitch. And then the garter stitch is simply knit all the way around, back and forth, 20 times. And so up to now, I have 1, 2, 3, and I had 4 actually of the repeats done. And I think it calls for 9 or 10. But I had to rip it all out because I realized that I had added a stitch to it. Somehow I had added a stitch. So this is about 3 feet long right now. The goal is to get it to be 6 feet, so it's about half its size. And it will also have at the end, all right, the little flex that the yarn flex that they put in the end. It will be a very warm shawl because it's done in Cascade Yarns Eco Plus, and that is about, we had that sort of brief discussion last week between Clarisabeth and myself. The pattern the label does say worsted, but it is, when you try to buy it, it is classified as Aran and some places bulky, because you know that in between US and the UK, what we consider worsted, Aran, bulky, chunky is not the same. So there are some different, it's thicker, let's call it a thick worsted. And so it's going to be very warm, and I will have absolutely no use for it here on the island, obviously, but I'm thinking it'll make a great shawl for scarf. It'll make a great scarf for when I go to visit my son who lives in New Hampshire, and they get some very brutal winters down there. And so hopefully it'll be done by the next time I visit him. If you'll notice, this color matches the color here on my mannequin, because my mannequin is wearing the hat that I made last year for this same cowl. And this hat was to simulate or to represent Mary and, what do I keep forgetting names here? But I had it in my mind just a moment ago. But this is from the Downtown Abbey series. And so it was my Summer Romance cowl entry for last year. One of my entries for last year. It's made out of the same yarn. So I'm thinking that I actually might be able to pair them to wear them together. So yes, that was my entry for Mary and Matthew was the names of the because last year the theme was romantic couples, and so I chose Mary and Matthew of the Downton Abbey series. Okay, well, I got that off my chest. It was bothering me. So, what else can I share with you? Well, you'll also remember that I was working on, and I showed you, I showed you only the beginning of the one of my next test for the my sweet crochet socks pattern that I am working up to be able to use for the sock along that is going to be hosted by Faye of the Crochet Circle podcast, along with the participation she hopes, and we all hope, of several other podcasters, and we'll all bring in our groups and we'll all be making some form of a sock. So that's probably early September. And so I had only begun the toe last week, I believe, when I was sharing this with you. And we were comparing my toe, which was in a large size, which means 60 stitches, compared to Clarissa's sock, which was the medium with 54 stitches. And so I finished the sock with 60 stitches just to follow the pattern and make sure that the instructions were correct. But when I finished it, it was so big on me. At the cuff, at the bottom, the foot was okay. Actually, it was not a bad fit. But the cuff was so big that I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Just rip it all out and start all over again in a different size? I didn't want all that work to go to waste. So what I did was, once I got to I did rip back the cuff and the cupcake stitch. And once I got to the leg here, there's 1.5 inch of this sort of moss stitch leg. And then I started reducing. I tried to reduce my stitches there and bring them back to a 54 because the cupcakes needs a multiple of 6. So I had to bring it back to a multiple of 6. After 60 going down, the next multiple of 6 is 54. So I brought it down, and I also went down on my needle size. I was using a 3.5. Here I went down to 3.25 and finally decided that instead of the cuff to add a ruffle. Because one of the things that we want to do with this pattern is to give you some alternatives, some options, especially if it's your first sock, or if you make more than one for the sock along, that you can make the same pattern and just add a different option. So this is a shorty, but instead of having a cuff, it is finished. It's just that I haven't hidden this in case I decided to rip it out. I always do that. And so it's got a ruffled cuff, and the ruffled cuff in the same yarn. I haven't changed my yarn at all. And if you'll notice, I actually thought that the yarn did not work up that bad for crochet. Usually these yarns are made for knitting, so they don't look as attractive when you crochet them up. This one doesn't look that bad. But if you go to the hashtag, I'll have to write it down on the screen, but there is a hashtag on Instagram that you can go to see socks that have been knit up in this yarn, this exact same yarn. This is the Tutti Frutti, but Tutti Frutti has various versions. It's got a watermelon version. This is the dragon fruit. And so you can compare them. They don't look the same because this ridge in the middle of the pinks here, let's see, around here, it is a lot grayer. It is a lot grayer. And it shows up a lot more when you knit. But I didn't think it was that bad. I've done a lot of crochet socks with striping yarns, and they don't always come out as neat and nice. Look how nicely the cupcakes came out. Each of the bases was green on this side, and the frosting was white. Each of the bases on this side were pink, more or less, and the frosting was white with that gray, with those gray little stains, or whatever you want to call them. So I haven't started the second one, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But the second one is going to be done because this one does fit me. So that was another make that I had started. I guess we can consider this one a half finished object because it's complete. It just needs a partner. In addition to that, I also was sharing with you last week my birthday make, my garment birthday cast on, which was the top presented in the Interweave, spring 2014. This is called the Convergence Top. It is still available on Ravelry. You can still purchase it. And this is the Convergence Top by Linda Scuja. And the yarn is a Noro yarn, Noro Taijo sock yarn. Okay, I don't know why I'm showing you that, but I should be showing you the yarn. So this is the yarn. And the yarn is 50% cotton, 17% wool, 17% nylon, and 16% silk. And you remember a couple of shows back where I said I was so in love with the idea of purchasing it because I thought it was going to be divine. The truth of the matter is, I dislike it very much. I don't want to say hate because that's a very strong word, but I really don't like it. If you gave me the choice, I would never use it again, except that it was on sale when I went to purchase it, and so I purchased about, I'm not sure, maybe 6 or 8 skeins of this yarn. And I really dislike it because it is very inconsistent, and it's got places where it's very long, and then you come up on places where it's so thin that you think it's going to break. It's got knots. It is very easy to break. I really don't even need to pull on it that much, and it'll just come apart. So I'm actually a little bit afraid that that the blouse might fall apart on me. So I'll be very careful when I wash it. I'm thinking right now that it's not going to fit. Okay, this is what I have up to now. It's looking very small, though there is stretch to it. But because of the fact that the yarn is so tender and it breaks so easily, I don't think I would want to block it aggressively. This is just a wash and spread out. And so I might end up just passing this on to Clarisabeth. I have done the back part. This is the back part, and I am up to the part where I'm going to start shaping for the sleeves. And so that's the blouse up to now. I was thinking the other day that it is really an easy make. It's only got 2 pieces, because the front, now it'll go up and now it'll open up for the sleeves a bit, and then it'll have the neck. So it'll be like these 2 rectangles, one for the total bottom part and one longer rectangle for the top part with the sleeves, and then they'll be joined together. It does have some curving for the sleeve to make a little cap on the sleeve, but it really shouldn't take up that much time. It's just that I haven't dedicated myself fully to it. I've been doing other things, as you can see. So, but my guess would be that if you worked on it a couple of hours every day, it really wouldn't take you that long to make. So that's the last of the works in progress that I want to share with you. And in terms of future projects, I did purchase a yarn. I was going to purchase it on Etsy. I do like to support small businesses, but the yarn that she had, the person, I don't know, the business, the shop, had yarn of the blend. It wasn't the same brand, but it was the same blend. This is the make that I would like to make. And it is called, the yarn that it uses is Skaso, 60% cotton, 20% linen, and 20% rayon. And so I couldn't find that yarn anymore. Obviously this is an old magazine, but I found the blend in another type of yarn. I found it on Etsy, and I wanted to make this in white, but the shop on the price, the price was fine, but when I went to calculate the shipping, it was twice as much as the yarn. It was like 10 something for the 6 balls of yarn that I needed, and 20 something for the shipping, and I was like, that is a little ridiculous. And so I wrote to the shop owner, who said that there was no control for shipping prices, that Etsy just gave you the price once you measured. The only thing you did was measure, and give it the address, and so I had the feeling that it was treating shipping to Puerto Rico as international. Because then I went to another shop and I tried to buy something and send it to Puerto Rico just to see how much was the price, and it did not charge me that much. The shop owner told me that it was because of the increases that Etsy was going through recently, that the shipping increase had gone up, but that was just an exaggeration. I mean, it was twice the amount of money, and yarn doesn't weigh anything. It was twice the amount of money as what the object was worth, and it wasn't happening with other products that I was buying from other sellers. So I don't know what the story was. I also went and I shipped it to Florida instead of shipping it to Puerto Rico. And the price went down significantly. I think the shipping price went down to $13. And so I questioned the shop owner, why would it be cheaper if we are using U.S. Postal Service and flat rate for both? I'm not asking you for any expedited service or anything like that. But anyway, we couldn't find any reason for it, so I just ordered from somewhere else. I did order. The matter is that I did order yarn to make this. And so I wanted it to be another make for the Summer Romance. There's a couple of garment cals going on for the summer. And but I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think, because of the fact that it's going to take a while for the yarn to get here. Here's the back of the shawl. And I was going to choose my bad girl, Irene Adler. And in the series Hollywood version, she wears a lot of red and pompous clothes and lots of ribbon and lots of not lace, lots of fluff, lots of ruffle and stuff. And in the BBC version, she has very sleek. She's always in sheaths, and since she's a dominatrix, well, everything is very close to her body. And so I thought this represented more the BBC version, but at the point, I don't think I'll get it done for that cal. So we'll see. I might just do it for my pleasure. But what is happening currently is that I have picked up a lot of knitting projects, as you have seen, though some of them I have just faded out and left on the side for a while. But since I began combining knitting with crochet, I have also begun to feel a pain in my middle back. Now, I haven't been a person to have the best posture all of my life. I've always had a slouch and rounded shoulders. It's a defect, but that I've wanted to improve significantly over the years, but it just never happened. I mean, you get lazy as the years go by, but I don't know if it's my slouching, my bad posture. I can sometimes sit down to either knit or crochet. I usually do it at night after 6, and I'm usually up and crocheting or knitting until 1 or 2 in the morning because I have a lot of problems sleeping. And so I've heard other people have this same problem. I don't know what the matter is. I do know that I've been feeling that pain for maybe close to a month now. It hasn't really gotten worse until yesterday. And maybe it was because I started reading up on injuries related to this repeated movement that we do in crochet and in knitting, and maybe it became, a psychological thing. I got subjected to what I was reading and started noticing the pain more, and it does not, it does not inhibit me, it does not restrict my movement in any way. It doesn't hurt when I move. It only hurts when I sit down to crochet or knit. So I'm going to have to take a break because I don't want it to come to a point where I have to stop totally. So I am going to significantly reduce. I'm going to start out by not crocheting or knitting for a couple of weeks. Then I am going to reincorporate it 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time and try not to go back to my marathons of knitting or crocheting. But obviously that also means that I'll get a lot less done. In combination with the fact that I will be going back to work and I never know my schedule until classes start, so I have no idea how many days a week I'll be working, how many hours a day, etc. So that will significantly reduce the amount of crafting time that I have, and so I will not be podcasting again for another month. And so I am going to make the date and set the date for you now. Well, not exactly the date, but a more or less an a date-ish, a time-ish for when I will be back. Today is the 23rd of July, and I think I'm going to take a month off. And it's really bad, right? It's because I remember Clarisabeth and I used to suffer so much during the summer months because our summer vacations are not really very exciting. We don't have children anymore, so we don't take trips. Traveling in summer is usually more expensive for us than it is to travel in the colder months, and so we usually tend to travel later on during the year. So I got a lot of time on my hands, which I won't be able to use for crafting because I just don't want to exacerbate it. I don't want to make it worse. So, and I will need to be better before I start going back to work. So I'm going to take it easy, and I will kindly ask for you to have your patience with me and try and join up again with me in maybe mid-August. Hopefully I'll get back and tell you how I've been, at least, or what I've been doing. If it's gotten worse and I've had to visit a doctor, or if I am better and have been able to get some things done, I'll share them with you. So let's set a date for about in another month, about mid-August, and hopefully everything will be better by then, and I will have learned control and discipline and all of those words that I've been choosing as my yearly words for the past couple of years, balance, and I will have learned, you know, how to control and not obsess. So that's all I have to share with you for today. And hopefully mid-August, in about a month's time, 3 or 4 weeks, I will meet up with you again, and I'll have some good news for once. Some good news about what I've been up to, what I've been doing, and most of the projects that I have here hopefully will have been completed. Maybe in that 20 minutes, half an hour sittings, I'll be able to get them done if I'm consistent on a daily basis. And so until we meet again, until I get back to you, please remember that this has been Caroline, your host for Mind and Muse, and there are multiple ways that you can continue to communicate with me through the social media. I am on Instagram as inspired_professor, and I am on Ravelry as I inspired P professor, and I have a email address for this podcast, which is mindandmuse@gmail.com, mindandmuse@gmail.com. And so you can communicate with me in any of those ways, and we can keep in touch even though I won't be returning to the screen for a while. So in the meantime, keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, and keep crafting. I'll see you soon. Bye.